Yeah, so good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a brand new Sunday Gridiron here on the Sports Insanity Network. I am Mark Oldup's Guy Halpern. Along with me is Buddy the Elf down at the bottom, who's working on this great, beautiful day. Look at that awesome sweater. And always with me, my hetero life mate, Mike the Pun Master Rifkin. Good morning, all.
Morning. Hey, buddy. How are you?
Good. Real quick before I go, Rifkin, I'm always on the list.
That's true. That's true.
For those of you who don't know, that is our president, Lawrence Patchman Lang, who is at work, working hard and getting us live as I am too old and stupid to figure it out. So we're going to get ready to move on into our day. But before we get started, we have some little couple of special notes to go out. First of all, down to a group that we have come to know very well with Rudy Campos and Sweep the League down in Texas. We listen, we watch, we're looking forward to a new year, hoping you and your family and your crew's family have a wonderful, happy, healthy new year and a merry, happy holidays. Also, for those of you who do not know, the Sports Insanity Network and the Dugout of Millard are strong supporters of Mary Zolzer, who is going through a very tough medical time. For those of you who have attended the Hudson Valley Renegades, all know Rick Zolzer as the voice of the Renegades. He has gone out and supported everybody, and every need is this time he needs some help. So if you have time and you've listened, please go to GoFundMe and look up Mary Zolzer and read her story, and you'll see why. Now, we're going to get into the reason why we're really here today for football, and we're going to get going, and we're going to kick it over to Mike, the Pun Master Rifkin. Mike, good morning.
Good morning and Merry Christmas, everyone. Actually, and Happy Festivus to all that
Happy
celebrate.
Festivus, yes.
We've got a lot of issues to talk about with you people. We're going to let you know about it. All right. We're in the week 16 NFL season. We'll open this up because we'll talk playoff clinching scenarios. Then we'll get into the games that have already taken place. All right, so let's start AFC. These are clinching scenarios. A team already in the playoffs who may or may not have the NFL MVP. The Baltimore Ravens in the game of the week, which we will definitely talk about. The Baltimore Ravens can clinch the AFC North Division with a win tomorrow night against the 49ers and a Browns loss, or a Ravens tie and a Browns loss. But the Ravens can win the division with a win and a Browns loss. The aforementioned Cleveland Browns can make the playoffs. With a win today, along with the Bengals loss of yesterday, plus a Denver loss, plus an Indianapolis loss. So Cleveland's got multiple ways they can get in. What a story that would be. The Kansas City Chiefs can win the AFC West tomorrow with a win over the Las Vegas Raiders of Oakland. Another game we will talk about later. The Miami Dolphins can clinch a playoff spot with a win today over the Dallas Cowboys, or losses by the Jaguars, Colts, Texans, and or Browns. NFC already clinching berths. The San Francisco 49ers, the Philadelphia Eagles, who we will talk about as well in a little bit, and the Dallas Cowboys, who, nobody's going to judge until next month anyway. But Mark, your Detroit Lions can win the NFC North today with a win over the Vikings.
It should happen.
Or they could clinch a playoff berth with a Rams loss, which did not occur, or a Seahawks loss.
Yeah, they should win and get in today.
Two of their last three is Minnesota, too.
Wow. That couldn't have wound up worse for Minnesota.
Yeah. And the San Francisco 49ers, who've won the NFC West already, they're in the playoffs. They can actually clinch the number one overall seed in the NFC this week with a win over the Ravens, an Eagles loss over the Giants, which, let's be real honest about that, I've got a better chance of winning Lotto. The Cowboys losing to the Dolphins, and the Lions losing to the Vikings. So those are your clinching scenarios for this week. All right. And then let's dive into the games that have already occurred so far. We've had 3 of them. And we'll start with Thursday night, where Al Michaels was just legendary, as he usually is. The Los Angeles Rams of St. Louis defeat the New Orleans Saints by a score of 30-22. Matthew Stafford threw for 328 yards and 2 touchdowns. Kyron Williams went for another 100 yards and a touchdown. And Puka Nakua, 164 yards and a touchdown in the win. For the Saints, Derek Carr had 319 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. And the Saints go to 7-8. The Rams go to 8-7. And I think I can firmly say this. I think the Rams are the one team, the NFC, Mark, you're not going to want to see in the playoffs.
No, and you're not wrong there. The Rams have always been, over the last decade, that team that can just come in and score and win games. When they got Matthew Stafford, they made a calculated move, and it was a good one. It brought him a Super Bowl. And everybody thought after last year, Stafford was going to be counted out. Even after the way they started this year, they weren't hot, but they haven't given up. They've stayed in this fight and showing why they deserve to at least be talking about playoffs. I mean, as Mike pointed out, Nakua, 164 yards and a touchdown. Not to chip away at my own ego, but I didn't have, it's not like I picked this kid from the get start. I didn't have this kid anywhere on my rookie of the year list. And this kid has just taken this league by storm. Whether he's been injured, whatnot, he goes out, he plays. It kind of helps when you have somebody like Cooper Kupp on the other side of you who catches more passes than Chris Carter. It's outstanding. And look at the oncoming of Kyrie Williams, 104 yards. Now, it wasn't like they played a top-tier team. No offense to the Saints, but it's not like they went out and played a top-tier team like San Francisco, Dallas. Let's even give a good defense in there, Cleveland. I like to see this Rams team up against the Browns defense, and just to see what they are against a top defense and how they are going to project. Because if you go back to the Dallas game against the Rams, Dallas crushed them. But that was
also earlier in the season.
I said they were also missing, the Rams were also missing a few key pieces. Yeah. So if I'm Dallas right now, I'm thinking, God, the Rams, we don't want them in. The Rams have the easiest way to get into the playoffs, in my opinion. And they just got to keep doing what they're doing. The question becomes, are they going to be able to keep it going, as they know they're going to have no bye, no downtime, no matter what? Injuries are still going to pile up. Are they going to be able to keep this continuous momentum into the playoffs? That's going to be the biggest issue.
And their last 2 games, they play the Giants next week.
Okay.
And then they play the 49ers, and the game may not matter to the 49ers.
But here comes a good question. Right now, the winner of the NFC East, if it were to end today, would be the 49ers, since they hold the tiebreaker over the Philadelphia Eagles and the Cowboys. So the 49ers would get that bye week. I'm sorry. If I'm the 49ers, I don't want to see Los Angeles at any chance can come up and face me, knowing how hard they play them throughout the season. And this is a team like that Giants wildcard team that decided to go down on a boat. Rams players, stay in Los Angeles, please. And blew it. This is a Rams team that is a very, very positive team and has a lot of determination right now and can go anywhere with it.
I think the most interesting story, the Rams get in and they play the Lions in the first round.
That would mean the Rams at 7 and the Lions at 3.
Yeah, so you'd have them. No,
That's, you know,
three
when,
six.
okay, sorry, 3-6, my fault. When you think about it, that game is much more special than it just
Yeah,
being a playoff game. It
yeah.
is the traded quarterbacks. Which one of them can lead it further? That game would be played in Detroit, however. So you're going to be taking a big risk if you're Detroit because there are a lot of Stafford fans still in Detroit that will cheer him.
Yeah, and I don't think there's animosity between the two. I just think for the
No,
storyline purposes, that's what you want.
exactly.
But I want to go back to something you talked about, and you talked about Puka Nakua, and I said this in my group chat with the Wishbone guys. I watching that game. I'm like, Puka Nakua is just Cooper Cup 2.0. They're the same guy.
If he doesn't win Offensive Rookie of the Year, there's a fault in the Matrix.
Well, offensive rookie of the year is going to be so hard because you got him. Sam Laporte has had a really nice year.
I mean, when you put I mean, those are your two front runners. I have him over Laporta. Only one reason is because this isn't just an on start. He's been producing like this all year.
And
Laporta, not to take anything away from him, didn't show up until week about 6 or 7.
and the other part is they always put the quarterback involved too. So CJ Stroud's going to be in there,
Well, we'll
and
get to
he's
him
not
eventually.
playing today. We'll talk more about
Yeah, we'll
Houston
get to him later.
later. Although I loved what D'Amico Ryan said. So when he talked
It
about
was a
the
great quote.
long-term health, and
Yeah, it
so
just shows you how smart of a coach he is.
yeah, and just to flip side this to the Saints, I've said this for a long time. I listen, Derek Carr's hurt. I understand he's playing with broken ribs. He's got a shoulder issue. This Saints team doesn't have the offensive talent to compete in the league. They don't. Chris Olave's solid, but outside of that, their receivers aren't great. Alvin Kamara doesn't look like the same guy he did a couple of years ago. And
Zeke 2.0.
it's not even that Zeke. I think the presence of not having Drew Brees has hurt him.
And you're not wrong. You're not wrong at all.
And to be honest with you, the play calling for the Saints is just suspect. But they're in this race because the NFC South is atrocious. And they'll play Tampa Bay next week. And then they get to close out the season. They will play. Oh, they'll play Atlanta. So the two teams they're competing with in the division, they get to play. So,
And if you look, you got to give credit to Derek Carr. He was brought over from the Raiders organization to lead this team, and he's got his contract. The guy has been paid.
yeah.
He's still going out and doing what he's supposed to do. He's not saying, I need him. No. I hate to put poor Derek Carr in this. Like, reminds me of Tony Romo a little. And that no matter what the situation is, if he can get his arm going, he's going to play. So I give him credit there, but you got to start thinking long-term health. And is it time to move on from Kamara and get what you can from Olave and rebuild this team?
Well, I'd build it around Olave. I think Olave's got your potential to be a one. It's the guys that surround him. Michael Thomas is done.
Yes.
And by the way, I take no Brian Zane can't stay healthy. So
No,
now,
over the last 3 years, he's barely played half the
right.
season.
So outside of put him to the side for a minute. The other receivers you're looking at, Rashid Shaheed, who looks like just a deep ball guy.
Yeah.
Keith Kirkwood, who I don't even know who that is. When I first heard the name, I'm thinking of Red Foreman from that 70s show.
I thought you were thinking, I don't know why. I was thinking Kurt Cobain for some reason.
A little bit of Nirvana in the air.
Yeah. I don't.
Then you look at the tight ends, they're still relying on Jimmy Graham.
who, mind you, has had more touchdowns this year than his previous 4 years.
Oh yeah.
However,
the point is you shouldn't be
he has
relying on
seven
this
catches.
guy.
He has 7 catches on the year, 4 of them touchdowns. It's a problem.
Yeah. Then you're looking at Jawan Johnson, and they are so heavily relying on Taysom Hill. And this is not a Taysom Hill hate party, but it's just I don't know. I feel like if you're not committed to Taysom Hill being your quarterback, they're really do you really want to commit to him as the Swiss Army knife?
Here's the thing, and before we move on quickly, I think the New Orleans Saints became unraveled the moment Sean Payton left.
And
I think their whole scheme went out the door.
Yep.
And now they're just putting together what they can for this year and they'll reformulate.
Well, I think that's a good point because they didn't just go out and hire a new coach. Dennis Allen was on staff and he kept the same staff for the most part. So
Right.
to me, that for me is just I don't want to say it's lazy, but it's kind of lazy in the sense of I don't know how many candidates you went out and actually interviewed. I just know you hired from within Sean Payton. I would want, and this is not a Sean Payton, change the identity. Sean Payton's not there. Drew Brees isn't there. The Saints are a different team. Stop acting like you're the same team you were with Sean and Drew. You're not.
You have to become your own identity.
Right. The Bourne Identity. Great films. All right. So that was Thursday night. Rams go to 8-7. The Saints go to 7-8. But the Saints still control their own destiny. They play the Bucks and the Falcons to end the year. By the way, the Falcons should just be disqualified from the playoffs after losing to the Panthers. That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, I'm sure Chicago was saying, what the hell?
I don't think Chicago cares because the Panthers are still.
Yeah, I know, but still, you don't want to see.
They're not winning 4 in a row here. All right. On to yesterday and games that had some meaning to it. The Steelers routed the Bengals by a score 34-11. Mason Rudolph, the red zone reindeer, threw for 290 yards and 2 touchdowns. George Pickens had a day, 4 catches, $195 and 2 touchdowns. For the Bengals, Jake Browning threw for 335 yards, a touchdown, 3 picks, and T. Higgins had 140 yards and a touchdown. Both teams go to 8-7, but Pittsburgh has a tiebreaker over Cincinnati because they swapped them in the season series.
So if you all need to hear something funny, yesterday Mike reaches out to me and he says, Mark, I need help with one of you guys. George Pickens, Terry McLaurin, and who was the other one you asked me about?
Josh Palmer from the
Josh Palmer. I immediately said, forget about Palmer. You know, that was
right. That was more so of Keenan Allen and Mike Williams are out.
Yeah. So. I got, you know, mind you, we're a couple hours away from kickoff. I had Terry McLaurin because I think he's going to have a big final, you know, day in New York before it's all over. And I told him, don't take George Pickens. Trust me, with Mason Rudolph throwing, you don't want Pickens. Yeah, after 3 seconds of the opening quarter, I'm like, all right, let's see how wrong I am. The moment he caught the 80-yard touchdown, I turned it off and I texted Mike and I said, don't ever listen to me again. Sure. Mind you, the guy ended up with 200 yards and 2 touchdowns, would have paid off in points.
Well, listen, I did have T. Higgins, so I can't get too.
When you look at this game, it's a battle of nothing. I mean, I hate to say it like that, but it's really a battle of nothing, and it's 2 teams. I mean, one, you got to give credit to Jake Browning, you know, just coming in and doing what he's doing, trying to fill in for Joe Burrow. But on the other hand, the Cincinnati defense did nothing to shake Mason Rudolph, to really throw him off, because Rudolph was pretty much on point the whole game. Najee Harris helped out with 80 yards on the ground, which helped move the ball. And it's not like Pickens had 12 receptions. He had 4 receptions. They just happened to all be for close to 60 yards apiece. I mean, come on.
And George Pickens hadn't played that well in recent weeks, and that's a big part of this. But I think for Cincinnati, man, like the injuries just keep keep hitting them. Like last week, DJ Reader gets hurt, and you saw the effects of it yesterday. Pittsburgh was effective running the football. I think the other thing for me on Cincinnati, and they've stayed in this race, and I give them a ton of credit. They were also playing without Jamar Chase. They were also down, whatever. Cincinnati was the one team in the AFC that I looked at and I said, you know what? If Jake Browning keeps playing the way he had been playing, which was really well, with those three receivers, with the two running backs they got, because Chase Brown's been really good, the defense finds its way in. They're the team. No, they could be the Rams essentially in the AFC, even without Joe Burrow. I think that dream for them is now over for the most part. But this is still a team next year when they're fully healthy. They're going to be really dangerous. Now, flip side to the Steelers, I'm still not a believer in the Steelers, despite this. Their last two games are on the road at Seattle, which, Mark, not an easy place to go play.
Yeah, probably no matter what the situation is, probably one of the loudest.
And they end the year at the Baltimore Ravens. And what you said about the 49ers not wanting the Rams, the Ravens would love nothing more than to knock the Steelers out of the playoffs.
And that's why I don't think you'll see a shutdown of any Ravens player this season, no matter what. The Ravens need that bye just to get a couple of people a little bit of a break. But Lamar Jackson's playing at a level that we have not seen.
Yeah, we'll talk Lamar in a bit because I think he's playing better than his MVP year, if I'm being honest. But
I don't disagree with you.
All right, so if you're Mike Tomlin next week, and there were reports saying Kenny Pickett could play next week, do you roll Kenny Pickett out there, or did Mason Rudolph earn himself another start?
You have to look at it from the standpoint of not only as a business, but what's best for the team. That old adage, take one for the team. Yes, I know Pittsburgh can possibly make it into the playoffs, but is it worth putting Pickett out there and having a Tua situation or a Trevor Lawrence situation where this guy's health is going to be under too much concern? And right now, I think Mason Rudolph has earned another start next week. If the Steelers happen to win, then you can make your decision after that for the final game. But I would hold Pickett out one more game.
Yeah, I'd roll with the Rudolph too. He was really good. So, and also my thing on Kenny Pickett has been he hasn't done anything for me to make me say, "Wow, he's the guy." So, Steelers still alive. The Bengals technically still alive, but they need a lot of help. Pittsburgh has Seattle and Baltimore on the road. Cincinnati goes to the Chiefs next week before they end with the Battle of Ohio. All right, and the last game from Saturday, the Bills beat the Chargers 24-22. Josh Allen was 15 of 21, 237 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Gabe Davis, 130 yards receiving and a touchdown. And for the Chargers, Easton Stick, 23-33, 215 yards and a rushing touchdown.
So we know Nate Moser was screaming and yelling as I heard him all the way from Virginia last night. And then
the Chargers played as well as they could have for Giff Smith. I can't believe that's the name, but all right, Giffer. But this game was there for the Chargers for the taking.
From the sound of the word "go," pretty much.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. From this kickoff, when you look at this Bills team and what they did last week to my Cowboys with no excuses, they stopped the offense, which is not easy enough to do, but they ran the ball on the defense. Now you go into a Chargers team in which Dallas manhandled and pretty much half the league is manhandled, and you show up kind of lame. Yes, you come out with the win, and that's what matters in the standings at the end of the game and when it comes to the playoffs. But you can't tell me that this Buffalo Bills team is going to make it past the wild card round if they keep playing like this. Their defense, sorry, let me rephrase that. Their defense keeps playing like this. The offense has been playing pretty good and solidly lately.
Well, I'm going to give him a couple of things. I'm going to give him one, it was a short week. And two, you know as well as I do, that first game when a coach gets fired, that team usually comes out playing pretty hard. I listen. I thought the Bills were okay. I thought the Bills they were not able to really establish the run as well as they did against the Cowboys.
Well, James Cook kind of had 109 yards less this week than he did last week. So
He
hats
also
off to the Chargers run stop.
he also had a couple of fumbles, and that's something they're going to have to work on. But the other thing is about the Bills is they're winning games now where they're not relying on Stephon Diggs.
And that's a big key importance right there is, yes, Stephon Diggs is technically the one, but he's being utilized like a two.
And here's the thing. Let's not make it seem like Gabe Davis has been this absolute stud this year. I think on the broadcast they said he'd gone 4 of his last 6 games. He'd had 1 or fewer catches. And the only number fewer than 1 is 0.
Right.
And by the way, bad year to be in a contract year for Gabe Davis, but that's a whole nother conversation. I think they have so many weapons. They have a Dalton Kincaid who I wish they would utilize more. They've got Khalil Shakir, who I keep wanting to say Shakira, but that's a whole nother conversation too. But they have these guys. They have an ability to want to run the football. The defense, with all their injuries, has played well. It's there for that. It's there. So, flip side this to the Chargers. Easton Stick was okay, but listen, the Chargers are still the biggest disappointment in football this year, even with the injuries.
With injuries, I kind of feel bad for Justin Herbert because coming into this season, this looked like any other fan would say, this looks like their year. We've talked about it with the Jets. We've talked about it about Cincinnati. We've mentioned it about other big teams. But this Chargers team between Eckler, Herbert, Allen, and Williams was one of the best put together teams in football, and they just couldn't get going. And then when they started getting it going, you lose Mike Williams, who was supposed to have a big year. Easton Stick did a great job yesterday, but he couldn't connect really with anybody. He didn't throw a pick. He completed better than 50% of his passes, but he didn't throw a touchdown either. So, there's a lot to work on. You're playing with, backups, like Mike said, coach was fired last week. So a lot of things have to come together for the Chargers, but Justin Herbert, I feel, just lost out.
Well, I'm happy you brought up Herbert because next year his new contract kicks in.
Correct.
Which they had this really interesting graphic on the broadcast. They have 4 other guys who are going to make $30 million or more next year. Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. And Chris Collinsworth
Here's a guy.
Here's a guy, but he made a very interesting point saying not all those guys are going to be on the roster next year. And again, I put this in the chat I have with Wishbone guys, and I said, looking at that graphic, I don't think they're getting rid of Bosa. I'd be hard pressed to get rid of Khalil Mack. I think the easiest guy for me to dump would be Mike Williams.
But you just signed him to a new deal.
Right. But my problem with that is Keenan Allen, I think, is a borderline Hall of Fame guy.
Eventually, yes.
Right now, he's borderline. If he gets it, he gets it. If he doesn't, he doesn't. But I look at him and I go, I have so much respect for him because he's always been a Charger. And Mike Williams there's always something with Mike Williams, whether it's an injury, it's the drops, it's this thing. And I'm just like, yeah, he's nice, but Keenan Allen, eventually he's going to go Ring of Honor, potentially Hall of Fame. Like, that's the guy I would keep. You could get another receiver with some size. You can't get another premier route runner like Keenan Allen.
See, route running has become such a
Art.
overdeveloped
Yeah.
spot now that route running used to be an art form almost, if you want to put it, because of the way they were designed, and it had to work to every little foot and inch to your plan. Today, it's not about the route running. It's about the ability for your quarterback to buy a little bit more time for you to get the ball downfield more, to get those wide open receivers. You look at it, like Mike said, it's always something with Mike Williams. You're not going to get another premier route runner like Keenan Allen right now. And you've seen the biggest decline in Austin Eckler this year,
He's a free agent. So
right, who had a huge disappointing year. However, like Mike just said, he's going to be a free agent. And I think he just hurt his entire contract proposals by a lot because of this season, by not having a playoff season. And where he'll go, there's a lot of teams that can use Austin Eckler.
Well, here's one for it. Think of the free agent running backs that are going to be on the market.
Too many to think about.
You got Austin Eckler, you got Derrick Henry, and you got Saquon Barkley.
Yep.
That's
each one of them is $16 million a year running back.
So if you're in the running back market, you may want to call one of these guys. But unless I've said before, I'll say again where I would really like to see Derrick Henry, but that's a whole nother conversation. Him in the same backfield as Lamar would just be dynamite. Oh,
just hand him a ring.
Fun to watch. All right, so those were the games that have been played so far. The Charger season's over in the next 2 weeks. The Bills are still playing, not only for a playoff spot, but they could still win the AFC East. All right. Now let's dive into Mark's favorite team, the Philadelphia Eagles.
Cry, Eagles, cry.
After Monday's loss to the Seattle Seahawks, Jalen Hurts kind of questioned the team's, quote, commitment. You can go first because I have something I would like to say about this, but go ahead.
So over the years, we've watched, hotshot rookie quarterbacks come in, and look, I'm none other than standing out right in front with Dak Prescott. When Jalen Hurts came into the league, I was not impressed. Was I impressed what he did last year? Yeah, of course, But the Eagles have become such a one-sided team that their biggest threat is just throwing the ball in the air and hoping A.J. Brown is going to catch it. Nothing away from Devonta Smith. The guy is fast. He's quick. He's got good hands. But I believe Jalen Hurts is injured. I think he's hurt. I think whether it's the shoulder, that's why those balls are not getting there quickly enough, and they're lobbing more in the air, which is giving defenders, which we saw last week in that pass to A.J. Brown, how, mind you, yes, footing had to be perfect on that pickoff at the end, but there is something wrong with that shoulder, that he's not getting the ball out quick enough, and there's something wrong either with his hamstring or his knee because he's slower than he was. He's relying on DeAndre Swift with nothing bad really to say about him, because I had a lot of nice things to say about him when he was with the Lions. Unfortunately, he's wearing green and white, so I hate him. But DeAndre Swift was not the answer. Neither was Miles Sanders. Miles
Mm.
Sanders wasn't the answer for them either. They need a powerhouse running back that can do it. And that's unfortunately where I see Derrick Henry going. And
Yeah.
we'll leave that for then on out. And this tush push thing only proved to work for the Eagles. What did it prove for other teams? Brock Purdy getting a concussion, a sprained neck, other teams getting injured. So good, you did what you did. What else does Philly do? Philly gets into Big Dom, he hits a San Francisco 49er. What do we see last week? A Seattle Seahawk hit, I'm not sorry, a Philadelphia, another bumped, Seattle Seahawk bumped AJ Brown, and AJ Brown's taken, but nothing is done about it because they called it incidental contact, whereas, Big Dom, did kind of hit whatever. This Eagles team is a social media pariah. And I hate to say it, when Nick Foles was running this squad, you didn't hear crap about problems in the news or problems on the team. I hate to say it. Nick Foles left the wrong team, should have stayed with the Eagles, convinced them to keep him, and Eagles would have been far better off. The Eagles team is a disgrace, and this will be the first in any few times that I hope that the New York Giants stomp their little wings off. Now you may go, Mike.
Well, they have 2 of the last 3 games to get that opportunity because the Eagles and Giants will play 2 in the last 3 weeks. The Eagles will also play the Cardinals, so those are their last 3. I agree with one of the things you said, and that is Jalen Hurts is hurt. I think whether it's the shoulder, I think it's his legs as well. There's something wrong there. He's not running with the same dynamic as he did last year. But I also, he questioned their commitment. I'm not questioning their commitment. I'm questioning their identity. Because last year, what did they want to do? They wanted to run the ball down your throat, and then we're going to hit you with the big play action pass. Now,
sorry, Mike, sorry.
Now it's no, we've got Devontae Smith and AJ Brown. We're going to try to beat you through the air. And I just go, that wasn't your success last year. Your success was we're going to run the ball, and the running game is going to set up play action and the AJ Brown deep stuff and the Devontae Smith intermediate routes. I think that's something that they don't know what they want to be. This offensive line is much better in run block than it is pass protection. And that's the other area, because flip sided to the other side of the ball. These corners can't stop anybody. I know Darius Slay missed the game Monday night, but James Bradbury on that touchdown to Jackson Smith and Jigba, by the way, great catch.
Yes.
He was burned off the line of scrimmage. So these corners aren't playing well. And if they don't get pressure on the quarterback, they don't stop people. Last year, the Philadelphia Eagles won games for 2 reasons. Their offensive line was great, their defensive line was great, and that would capitalize into turnovers and other things. When they don't get that same success, they're having issues. And it could be they lost both coordinators. It could be, you win a division, your schedule gets tougher. I think they just got too big, and their ego is big. And they won games earlier in the season, kind of by luck. Like, look at the Kansas City game. If Marquez Valdez-Scantling holds that football, they lose that football game. They weren't blowing people out of the. They lost to the freaking Jets. Like, that's where the Philadelphia Eagles lie. And then when they do get tested against a really good team, Dallas could have beaten them both times.
Except Dak decided to step out a half inch before the goal line.
Buffalo should have beaten them. The Dolphins could have beaten them, but penalties were 10-0 in favor of Philly. But I don't hold grudges or nothing. But then they go and play the San Francisco 49ers, and what they do? They got punched in the mouth. What did they do against Dallas the second time? Dallas punched them in the mouth. What did they do Monday night? They got punched in the mouth, and they didn't respond.
And I think you hit it right on the head. You said it like Jalen Hurts said it. He's questioning the commitment. And I like your put on he's really should be questioning the identity. Mm-hmm. And you were right on that statement. That's why I had said that DeAndre Swift, as good as a runner he is, I mean, he's really, he's got good vision. The problem is he's a thin running back. And I hate to say it like that, but he has no muscle, nothing really to do it. But that's not for every running back to be. Everybody has their own niche.
But I think that's a good point. All of their running backs are the same guy. DeAndre Swift, Kenneth Gainwell, Boston Scott. They are all these skinnier, we're going to try to outrun you kind of runners. They don't have a guy who's kind of a pound you in the, punch you in the face.
And that's a big key, especially for a team like Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Who
they want that kind of guy.
And unfortunately, like I said before we started talking, this is a potential landing spot for Derrick Henry right now.
Even if you didn't want Derrick Henry, something like A.J. Dillon of the Packers could make some sense there.
Right. You don't necessarily need, yes, Derrick Henry would be the all-time right idea, but you don't necessarily need a Derrick Henry if you're able to get, like Mike said, someone who can, I'm going to phrase it back easily. Dallas had it with Zeke Elliott and Tony Pollard. Dallas had it. When Tony Pollard got injured in that San Francisco playoff game last year, I said the game's over. Dallas had it. Dallas just wasn't going to pay Zeke Elliott the money, and that was the problem.
Right. So, and listen, Philadelphia's going to need to think about certain things. Obviously, they're in the playoffs. So, but what's going to happen if Jason Kelce retires? What's going to happen when Lane Johnson retires and Fletcher Cox? Because those three guys, Fletcher Cox, Jason Kelce, Lane Johnson, those are your three leaders because those are the guys who've been there the longest.
Agreed.
Who's the guy who's going to be the vocal guy when they leave? Is it Jalen Hurts? Is it somebody else? I don't know.
Games are won in the trenches, as you and I both agree on.
Yeah.
And you're not wrong that those three guys who you just mentioned are three of the best to ever stand up in the game.
Again, you're talking about three guys who could potentially be in the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely. No question about it. Here's the issue. I look at it as I put it right with the Dallas Cowboys issue is that their offensive line is aging.
Yeah.
And you got to start replacing these guys, whether it's through the draft, through free agency, and build slowly, build fast. But if I'm Philadelphia, I'm not worried about my passing game. I'm worried about who's protecting my quarterback in the next couple of years.
Yeah. And you've already made that commitment to Jalen Hurts. We saw that with the contract he got this
and again, nobody should be getting these type of contracts without at least showing up in a Super Bowl. And I'm saying Dak Prescott included.
Well, yeah. Listen, you're not going to get me to talk about athletes' contracts. They're
Mahomes has proven what he's had to prove. What else does Mahomes have to prove anymore? Nothing.
Listen, I'm not disputing this. I just think the numbers are
no. I'm just saying Mahomes came in and he did it. He proved why he was drafted. He proved where he belongs.
He's the only one.
Exactly. When these guys make it to a Super Bowl, whether they win it or lose it, that's when they can say, "Well, I've been to a Super Bowl. How about you?"
Yeah.
That's the question.
Yeah.
no, Aaron Rodgers has that win. So does he need another one? No, but he's got one, you know. But well, that's another discussion here for another time. We
No,
have a
no,
lot
I
to,
get what you're saying. I,
but
I just side because more Aaron Rodgers talk because, he ain't playing the rest of the year. We know that.
no. Now we'll flip side this over to the Giants very quickly.
Yes,
The
we'll talk about this.
the Giants the Giants are just in a position to say F you to the entire world and just go out and play schoolyard football and just play. The best thing they can do is come out and try every gadget play. It's in their playbook. Blitz hurts all day. Let Tommy Cutlets throw the ball. Who cares if it's picked off 9 times and he becomes the new Peterman of the entire league?
I think he's going to care about that.
But you have a Giants team that, sadly enough, after looking at everything, is still mathematically in it. And we're not going to get into how, but they're still mathematically in it. So, in essence, they have something to play for. And I'm sorry, any team that has something to play for, you got heat under some people's legs. Could you imagine it can't happen. I don't think it can. Can you imagine a future in which the Giants make it to the playoffs in this NFC?
Yeah, because someone's going to win the NFC South, so this is not hard to imagine the Giants making the playoffs.
Fair enough. I didn't think about that.
But here's the thing on the Giants. I think there are certain guys, I will not name names, Tommy DeVito, who are playing, one, for their football career, but two, these are guys playing for jobs next year.
Yep.
Because let me be, if you're a Giants fan listening to this, I'm going to be very blunt. The Daniel Jones contract is a failure. In year one, it's a failure. He's not the answer. Tommy DeVito is not your answer either. Just look at how many times they cut to the agent and how he dresses. Tyrod Taylor's not your answer. So the New York Giants are in a spot where they're going to have to look, whether it's through the draft, which it probably has to be, where they're going to have to grab a new quarterback. And they're going to pick inside the top 10. So, argument's sake, Caleb Williams is gone, Drake May's gone. Who do you feel is the third best quarterback in the draft? Right now, for me, it'd probably be Jaden Daniels, the LSU kid who just won the Heisman.
And it's kind of sad when you see a guy with the Heisman that is featured as the third quarterback.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. But the other part of this, find somebody, I mean anybody, to take on Daniel Jones. Because your mistake, and I don't blame the Giants for this, because the Giants had every right to decline the 5th-year option. But once you decline the 5th-year option and he has the best year of his life, you knew what you were getting yourself into because you knew you had to pay him.
Exactly.
But you choosing him over Saquon, which essentially that's what you did. Listen, this is a talent depleted team. Daniel Jones is going to win you football games. He just can't lose you football games. And unfortunately, he put the Giants in a position where he lost some football games early in the year.
Right. And look, I was very vocal regarding Daniel Jones's contract, and I didn't like him even in college, and the Giants drafted him, I laughed. So, this goes down to scouting, whatever you want to call it, bad luck, whatever.
Dave Gettleman.
But Mike, you made the right statement. They chose to take on that 5th year. They chose to renew his contract. They chose him over Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley is gone. They want to tag him. It's going to be a $20 million hit. And forget it. Saquon is going to find himself comfortable in some team, whether it's out west, in California, or dare I say it, in red and white with KC.
Yeah, so We'll have to see on the Giants, but listen, I'm not trusting them to beat Philly twice if I'm you.
No, I'll take 1 out of 2 though.
As the great Meatloaf said, 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Correct.
All right. So that's Giants Eagles. The other big conversation recently has been about the MVP race, and I thought this was really interesting because the other day they talked about Brock Purdy talked about this, and he said, "No, I'd give my vote to Christian McCaffrey," which is
Yeah,
such a great answer.
it's selfless. That's
Yeah,
the word I was looking for.
yeah. So, Mark, I'll ask you right now.
Yeah.
Who would be your front runner for the MVP?
And there is no contest. You already said it. It's Christian McCaffrey. There is no guy more valuable in this league to any team in the NFL than Christian McCaffrey. The guy does it all from blocking to changing routes to his finding lanes and his ability to find the end zone. Let's not just to mention the speed and quickness. And it's not like he's a rookie. This guy is in his prime right now. And over the next 3 years, this guy is going to control the running back market. He is the running back market. He runs, he catches, he is everything that I'm going to compare him to Marshall Faulk. That Rams team was so dependent on Faulk's ability, not only to run the ball out of the backfield, but to get open for those checkdowns. That's what Christian McCaffrey is. You want to know the other guys that are in close contention. You can't say nothing to Lamar Jackson. You can't not have Brock Purdy's name up there. His name has to be in there. Does Dak Prescott deserve a mention? Yeah, but he's not in the top 5 after last week's loss. We'll see what happens.
Okay, I was going to ask you, but okay.
Okay. He's not in the top 5 after last week's loss. I'm big enough to say it, but does he deserve to be in the mentioning? Yeah, let's see what happens over the next couple of weeks. But right now, even if Christian McCaffrey was to break both ankles, the guy wins MVP, in my opinion.
I think you hit the top 3 on the head. I think McCaffrey is right. I think Brock Purdy's right. And I think Lamar Jackson's right. Because I think everyone else, the only other guy I would put in this conversation, and there's a big asterisk, would be Tyreek Hill. And that's if he gets the 2,000 yards.
See, I hate to say that a wide receiver doesn't have a shot, but when you look at the year that Tyreek Hill is put on and the show he's put on this year, it's hard not to garnish his name, but I don't. And was he need 153 yards a game over the next 3 games to do it?
Something like that.
Okay.
He's
against Dallas, if he's, mind you, you're also talking about a guy whose ankle is a very big question. And yes, he's slated to play today as of right now. So,
game time decision.
Yeah, but it's not a team game time decision. It's his.
Right.
That's to show you.
They want to see how it goes in warm-ups like they did last week.
Right. It'll be his decision. I think, if anything, if Tyreek Hill plays, it's not going to be at 100%. I think he'll come out more than he's used to. But I don't care if the guy's in a wheelchair. The guy's going to demand coverage. Yeah. And when you have a Tyreek Hill moving all over the field, you can't not watch him. So yeah, it's a possibility that he could win it with a 2,000-yard season, but very hard.
But the problem is, and that's where I was getting to, the last 2 games helped him and hurt him, because in the Tennessee game you saw what life was like without him, and then last week they put up a 30 spot against the Jets without him, and they looked really good. So,
yeah, and the Eagles can't be the Jets. Give me a break.
And the Eagles can't do that, really.
Give me a break.
I mean, so I have no issues with listen, we know it's a quarterback award, so if Purdy were to win, no beef. You talked about McCaffrey. I'm going to talk about Lamar.
Okay.
because the biggest flaw everyone talked about with Lamar was he can't throw. He can't throw. Well, newsflash. Lamar Jackson's got an arm. And by the way, what a difference it makes getting him real receivers. Because you know what? On his Christmas list, he said, I want receivers. I don't want to live in this Greg Roman offense from the Roman Empire. And we're going to go. So what did the Ravens do? All right, we're going to sign Odell Beckham, who, by the way, starting to come on. We're going to draft Zay Flowers, who runs like I used to run. You add that to what they had in a Mark Andrews, who was very reliable. The running back injuries are just absurd that they always get, from J.K. Dobbins now to Keaton Mitchell. And he's on the best team in the AFC. Where are the Baltimore Ravens without Lamar Jackson? Who, by the way, shame on other teams, the Falcons, the Saints. Where were you people when Lamar Jackson was a free agent and you could have had him in your building and you didn't want him?
I don't disagree with you how much Lamar is. But when you look at what you just said, and mind you, you're not wrong. You're 100% right. At the time he was being drafted, you have Matt Ryan and Drew Brees as your starting quarterbacks. And drafting Lamar Jackson,
I'm talking about this year when he was a free agent.
Oh, okay. Okay, never mind. Then I thought you talked about going back to the draft. The problem is I think Lamar wanted to stay with Baltimore. I think Lamar wanted to stay with Baltimore. I think he was, like he said, when he was drafted, and I'm taking this directly, I plan to be here for a very long time. I think he meant his career. Yeah. Because when you look at that draft, the Ravens were the ones who took the shot on him.
They used the last pick in the first round to take him.
Right. And it became one of the biggest steals in draft history. I mean, along with Randy Moss.
Think about this. Think back to that draft for a second. Baker Mayfield's on his fourth or fifth team now. Sam Darnold's a backup.
Yep.
Josh Rosen's out of the league.
Yes.
So right away, the two top quarterbacks in that draft are Lamar and Josh Allen.
Right.
So, and who are the two guys everyone questioned in those drafts? Lamar, Josh Allen. Lamar could win his second MVP, and he could be on his way to his first Super Bowl. Who knows? The AFC's loaded. But I want to give Lamar his due because he's doing this differently than he did the first time. He's throwing the ball. He's not just the runner.
And that's the big key.
Yeah.
Is to show off that arm talent that he has. And he's got a cannon when he wants to unload it.
Yeah, so he's got his opportunity. Excuse me. So, by the way, what we just said, basically, whoever wins tomorrow night's game between the Ravens and the Niners, whoever has the best game is winning the MVP. Is basically what we just said.
Yeah, pretty much it's what it is. I mean, as excited as I am for today's game, I mean, I understand now why they put the Philadelphia Eagles and the Giants at 4:00. I mean, everybody's sitting down to eat, so no one's going to watch anyway. So, I mean, at that point, I'm waiting for tomorrow night at 8:00 to watch that game.
Yeah, exactly. We all are. That's the cherry on top of Christmas. That game.
Yes.
Right, so, on to the games of today. We will talk about that Ravens-Niners game in a bit, but we start with some games today. In a battle of two teams playing for their playoff lives, you got the Colts taking on the Atlanta Falcons, who are turning back to Taylor Heineke today to start.
Which is the right move here. Look, Atlanta isn't going really much anywhere. Not that they've gone anywhere to start the season. They've literally been an named team, if you really want to put it. We as Mike has said many a times over the last 16 weeks, we don't know what Desmond Ritter is. Drake London has had spots of brilliance. Kyle Pitts is one of the biggest wastes of a pick in the last 5 years. So how do you look at it? Where do you garnish it? I don't. I'm not even caring about Atlanta. I'm looking at this Indianapolis Colts offense being run by Gardner Minshew, and they get back a huge piece of their offense today in Jonathan Taylor. Not JTT. He won't be working with any Wood or Tim Allen. No, Jonathan Taylor is back, and it's going to give a big relief to Minshew not having to step back and throw the ball for 30, 35 times. Minshew is good when he's able to control how much he's throwing. The Indianapolis Colts should come out with a big victory here. And the question becomes, if you're Atlanta, what do you do in preparation for next year?
Well, you're going to scare the quarterback, Mark. That's the first thing you're going to do if you're Atlanta. But no, you're right. Jonathan Taylor will be back for the Colts, but they'll be down Zach Moss today, who's out, and Michael Pittman Jr. He cleared concussion protocol, but on the flight down to Atlanta, he started feeling some of the symptoms again. So he's not going to play as well. That came from Adam Schefter, but
that I did not know. That's a big loss for Minshew, as Pittman's having a great year.
Yeah, and you're right. Like Minshew has played really well too. And by the way, Atlanta, just look at him and what he's done compared to
he's a free agent after this year.
Right.
So,
but think of the amount of teams that just sat there and said, "Nah, we're good." The Jets could have signed him. The
Jets could have picked him up. Any team, and
yeah,
aforementioned Miami and Dallas, who we both back, could have very well had his services as well.
I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm okay with Mike White as my backup. So
I like Cooper Rush. I just think he's too easy. That's why I'm excited one day for Trey Lance.
you're not rushing to Cooper.
No, unfortunately, I see Cooper they kept him just because of what he did last year. And then they wanted protection for this year. Now they have Trey Lance. They'll let him go and get a shot somewhere.
All right. So 2 teams vying for their division titles, the Colts and the Falcons. We covered this one a little bit, but the Lions are searching for their first division title in a long time as they play the Vikings.
Not since 1983 had the Lions won a division title. The Lions have made the playoffs, but they've not done much. I mean, that Barry Sanders year, was a great year. They beat my Cowboys. But throughout the years you've had on this team, you've had the likeness of Matt Stafford, Calvin Johnson. The list goes on and on. This year's team, like I said at the beginning of the season, this was probably the most complete Detroit team I had ever seen. And through the first 6 to 7 weeks, there was no contest who was going to win games. Over the last few weeks, we've seen not a decline in the offense, not by any means. The defense is starting to fail. And maybe exhaustion, maybe injuries, maybe, adjusting, whatever. It doesn't matter. Jared Goff is used to coming back and putting up 5 touchdowns a game, but he doesn't have to when he has this offense. He knows the offense can score. The defense has to get stops like it was in the beginning of the year and start and average the amount of sacks. They were averaging 4.8 sacks the first 7 games of the season. They're barely averaging 2 now. And that's a big problem and why they're getting picked apart a lot in the secondary.
And that secondary is going to get tested today. Justin Jefferson's back. Jordan Addison has had a really nice rookie year as well. But they're playing Nick Mullins. And if you lose a game to Nick Mullins, we're going to have a lot of conversations about the Lions. The Lions have to win this game up front. That defensive line, Aiden Hutchinson and friends, have to be really good today.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Mike.
They have to get pressure. they have to get pressure on Nick Mullins, get in his face. And that's how they'll do it, because you're right, the secondary hasn't been good. And listen, Jared Goff, the last time he played a Brian Flores defense, he struggled. So they need to get the ball out quickly. They need to run the ball effectively, which they were able to do last week. But they just listen, if you're the Lions, no win and you're in situation. Win and you're in. That's your only focus.
Exactly. And, for the Lions, it's not a hard game. But the problem is when you play a team in your own division, there's something more that goes into each team, and they play you just that much better. So this is a game I'm looking forward to today. And I believe it is one of the 1 o'clock games. I think it's Detroit,
Yes, it is
Minnesota.
a
It's
one
one of the
o'clock
1 o'clock games we will see here in New York. So I'm actually excited not to watch the Jets.
Oh, Jets Commanders, does it have you excited?
No, not at all. Unless Terry McLaurin proves me right and I can be redeemed from
So,
yesterday.
side note this.
Hot
I
Mike.
saw this on in our group chat. Their price of a ticket for Jets Commanders today is about $6.
You want to know what? Not even for that low of a money. If I was a diehard fan, you could get me to sit out in that type of weather and watch this game outside.
Nah.
Look, going to a football game, and yes, we're going to go on a little tangent because we can. Going to a football game is one of the most exhilarating, bruising, painful experiences you could ever do. But you have to do it right, and do it right once. And I'm not talking going out during a pre-game, game, these freaking crap games, and when it's 90 degrees outside. No, go sit out on January 2nd, -4 degrees, sleet, snow, and everything. When the Dallas Cowboys beat the Giants for the division, I was there. Froze my ass off out 4 hours tailgating. I swore again never to go to a football game again. It was not the cold, the liquor, or anything. It was the amount of bruises and bashes I had from getting my ass kicked. By the way, Dallas won that game if anybody was missing. Go ahead, Mike. While Mike's laughing, I'm going to make it interesting.
No, I'm good. I'll tell you one quick football game story.
Why not? We're having fun.
So I had to be around 8 or 9 years old. I went to a Jet Dolphin game with my dad at the Meadowlands. And I didn't understand why I couldn't wear a Dolphin jersey to the Meadowlands.
You learn fast.
Well, so my parents were like, no, you can't. So I decided to wear a Giants jersey to a Jet Dolphin game. Tiki Barber, to be exact.
Not laughing.
As a little kid, got heckled.
Oh, yeah. Look, the most dangerous stadiums to go into wearing an opposing jersey ranks 1 and 2. Veterans Stadium and MetLife.
Yeah, so
That's where it comes down to.
yeah, so that's my football stadium story. All right, so Lions Vikings again, kind of like Colts Falcons, but we have a battle of Florida when the Jags go to Tampa to play the Bucs. Trevor Lawrence will play today.
And the question, Mike, I want to throw this as a hot mic question to you.
Sure.
Is this a mistake considering you watching Tua play last year?
I think this is a mistake for multiple reasons. One, I don't think he's healthy with the ankle. That's one. And two, I kind of like with the Texans approach when we're talking concussions. CJ Stroud is going to miss his second straight game. D'Amico Ryan's talked about the long-term health. And I think that's what's more important. You've got to think about life after football, not just football. So I think this is a mistake by the Jags. But I also get why they feel they have to play him, because they want to win the division. They want to make the playoffs.
But at what cost?
Right. Because if Trevor Lawrence, suffers another concussion, you're right to mention too, how safe can we play this?
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
See, if we look at quarterbacks and concussions, there's two names that come up, and one of them, the great Troy Aikman, the other one, Steve Young. And you look at the two players, and mind you, both of them had amazing careers with great teams. Troy Aikman suffered 11 concussions, and Steve Young, 9. I had to look it up. When they're asked about certain games where they got injured, it's scary not to be able to recall the day it happened or what happened. And it's scary enough. I've had 10 concussions myself, all from baseball. And there are days I don't remember. I'm sorry. You, there's a risk when you play sports, but it's not worth your health and your life or even your future. I mean, it just has to be thought of safely. That's all. So in this case, yes, Trevor Lawrence is definitely not fully healthy. You can see it. You can see it all over. But you got to respect him and give him credit for trying. And the hope is that he doesn't end up, severely getting injured even more.
And flip side this to the Bucks. Ian Rappaport had this morning. The Bucks and Baker Mayfield have mutual interest on Baker Mayfield coming back to the Bucks next year. Baker Mayfield's playing. I'll be the first one to say he's playing the best football I think of his career.
I don't disagree there.
And if they find a fit, I still wouldn't mind the Bucks drafting a quarterback this next year either to pair that up with Baker Mayfield. But if they think they've got their guy, go for it.
Well,
But
Baker Mayfield can do something by winning the division that gives him the motivation.
oh yeah,
He gets
but
$1
it
million
also means
bonus if he wins the division. And he's in that talk right now.
yeah. So Bucks and the Jags are playing in the Battle of Florida. We'll continue on with the AFC South tour because the Texans, who are tied basically with the Colts and the Jags, they play host to the Browns. We mentioned CJ Stroud is out. Their inactive list just came out. I believe Will Anderson was on it too. Yeah.
Yeah, the big return will be Nico Collins. That'll be a big help
For
on the
KC.
outside.
Yeah, so the Texans inactives are Stroud, Will Anderson, Blake Cashman, Josh Jones, and Tierre Tart. But listen, this is a Cleveland team similar to Detroit. Win basically, and you're in.
Who would think we would be talking about Cleveland?
Drew Carey did.
Well, Cleveland does rock.
But here's one for you. Because we talked about awards, we talked about MVP. They're on their fourth quarterback in Joe Flacco. Nick Chubb goes down. They have some other injuries on the offensive line. I mean, we got to give Kevin Stefanski some consideration here on Coach of the Year.
You absolutely have to. We made all light about what Deshaun Watson was getting and all that. Friggin' Joe Flacco is in a position to take this. I mean, over the last few weeks, there's been nobody playing better than him as a quarterback. I mean, he's over the hill, but he can still sling it. He was with the Jets. And you can't tell me that Jets fans aren't saying, where was this when you were here?
Well, listen, the Jets are a whole nother conversation, but they've already said they believe that brass is coming back. Saleh's coming back. Joe Douglas is coming back. Nate Hackett's coming back.
Yeah,
but
we'll have to wait and see on that.
We all know that it's Aaron Rodgers, but who's running the show. But you're right. Joe Flacco's been great. That defense has been really good. So I'm with you. But that's a huge game for AFC playoff implications. Then we got the big one this afternoon. We know what we're talking about, I think. We got the Cowboys and the Dolphins before we get into the big one tomorrow. We'll get into this a little bit. We both each wrote an article pregame for this. You can check them out. sportsinsanitynetwork.com. I think this is a more important game for the Dolphins than it is the Cowboys. For this reason and this reason only. It isn't even because the Bills are creeping into the division. To erase the hate that the Dolphins get. And when I say the hate, I mean the narrative of you don't beat good teams. And over the next 3 weeks, they play the Cowboys, they play the Ravens, they play the Bills. If you win 2 of those 3 games, the narrative is erased. Now, again, I've made this comment many times, whether it be in an article or on the shows. The NFL is different from college. You don't create your own schedule. And who felt that playing the Cowboys, Ravens, and Bills in succession would work? I don't know. But I don't know about you. Did you see Mike McDaniel's quote from this week?
No.
Okay. So he was asked a question about not beating good teams this year. They're 0-3 against teams with a record of 500 or better. And he goes, our only focus is the Dallas Cowboys. And he says to the media, with all due respect, I don't want you guys asking questions on other games outside of the Dallas Cowboys, or you could, with all due respect, F off.
And you want to know what? That's the type of coach a team needs, is a coach who's focused on what's right ahead of him, not 5 weeks down the line, not even 2 weeks, the week coming up.
And the other thing I want to bring up, and then you could talk Cowboys for a minute, and then we can get into some of the keys. The national attention on Tua when he said he was keeping receipts. Because if you don't listen to the soundbite, you're going to get confused on keeping receipts means results of a game. But in reaction, Tua was answering a question based on Tyreek Hill. And people saying Tua is only a good quarterback when Tyreek Hill's available to him. Well, last week he was pretty good without Tyreek Hill, albeit against the Jets. But again, you don't make the schedule. So I just wanted to clear up that statement because I know certain people in the national media like to call Tua out for that stuff, but I think it's nonsensical.
See, when I look at this game, if I'm going to look at it from a non-fan base for a second, I don't disagree with you that it is a more important game for the Dolphins to win. If I'm looking at it as a non-Dallas fan, and I'm taking it just as sports in general, as Dallas Cowboys are in the playoffs, they don't have to worry
They're
about
playing more for the division.
Right. So the question becomes, is you're playing in Miami, primetime television. However, you just came off of one of the biggest losses in your schedule to the Buffalo Bills, in which your owner had to come out and make excuses, which is the problem with Jerry Jones. Oh, it was the weather. No, it wasn't the weather. It was
44.
The fact. What?
No. They kept saying on the broadcast that it was 44 degrees, and they would have signed up for that in Buffalo in December.
You kidding me? I couldn't have asked for better weather for that game. The Cowboys went in like they did against the Cardinals and like they did against the 49ers, overconfident, and came out with a basic game plan. This Cowboys offense has thrived because of using the West Coast offense that they had brought in. They went back to using that run-first defense, and Buffalo was ready for it. I would have tested more with the receivers. You lose the game, it's over. Going on to this week, before we get into the key stuff, what is Dallas need for this? Dallas has to win this game because they need to keep pace to win the NFC East. They don't need to win to be in. They're in. Mm-hmm. Dallas can sit back with their feet up if they wanted to. And either way, if they were to lose the last 3 games because they wanted to, they would face the winner of the NFC South. And you want to know what? That's a comfy way to go in. However, I don't like just sitting back and not doing anything. I play for pride, whether, whatever the case is. Dallas needs to win this game to shut up, like Mike said, certain analysts who don't know how to keep their big fat traps shut and just like to call out when teams lose because he wants to get that type of aggression. No, I will not call him out on national media because I don't need to have my ass handed to me. To make it simple and clear, this game is going to be probably one of the biggest scoring games and still only be won by 3 points.
Yeah, these are top two scoring offenses in football. So
The defenses match up, and I'm not going to say they match up evenly. The Dallas defense is better than the Miami defense, but the Miami defense is not lackluster at all. Okay,
oh,
I'm not taking.
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
I think the Cowboy defense is one of the best in the league. I think the Dolphin defense, while it's played really well the past couple of weeks,
Right.
they need to actually, let me phrase that. They played really well last week. They were coming off a horrendous performance Monday night in that fourth quarter. I think one of the things that I'm curious on from a Cowboy perspective, we know Tyron Smith has been ruled out.
Yes.
We don't know about Zach Martin.
It's still game time decision as of right now.
Hopefully, he didn't go partying with his cousin Ricky Martin last night.
No. If it waddles like a duck, no.
It waddles like a duck. But I think the key for the Dolphin defense is hopefully they have their secondary intact, because last week they went into that game, and this is what made me nervous about the Jet game. No Xavier Howard, no Javon Hall, no Deshaun Elliott. You're talking 3/4 of your starting secondary. And yeah, Jalen Ramsey's great, but I don't know if Jalen Ramsey's going to shadow CeeDee Lamb all day.
See, we'll get into it in a second, but that's going to be the big conversation here. And I think that's the biggest key, one of the biggest keys in this game. Go on, Mike.
So if you have Xavier Howard, he probably helps you with Brandon Cooks. And despite how fast Brandon Cooks is, but the safeties play such a big part in the Vic Fangio system. But I think with Tyron Smith being out, the guy who needs to have the game is your reigning AFC Defensive Player of the Week, and that's Bradley Chubb, who I think is coming off his best game as a Dolphin.
3 sacks last week?
3 sacks.
Bradley Chubb, when drafted by the Broncos, I thought was going to be a great home for him. I really did. I was sad to see how slow of a start he got, but you can just see by his talent that he's shown in Miami why Denver wanted him.
Mm-hmm.
He just didn't develop as fast enough. Fine, he's moved on. He's proven why he was drafted. How does Dallas stop someone like Bradley Chubb? You can't. It's not something you can just put in a playbook and say, here. No. What Dallas is going to have to do, and I know a lot of people are going to hate me for this, is I would do a combination and putting Jason Ferguson in the backfield with Tony Pollard. Go back to a good old-fashioned Jason Witten type stand and have Jason Ferguson there to be able to cover that right side. That's just one way. Coaches and Dan Quinn and Mike McCarthy will have it all figured out by game time. But right now, if there's nobody to block Bradley Chubb, and that's a problem.
Yeah, Bradley Chubb, Christian Wilkins, and Zach Sealer need to be forces in the middle. But I think the biggest key for the Dolphins, it's not turning the ball over. It's not forcing turnovers. It's not even getting pressure on Dak. Dolphins need to establish the run like the Bills did. And if they can do that and they grab a lead, I know this has been the narrative this week. If you grab a lead, Dallas can't come back. I think that's baloney because Dallas has the offensive firepower to do whatever they want. But if you run the ball and you control the clock, and you don't leave Dak time, those 3-4 yard runs, they add up. And with Raheem Mostert having the year he's having, and your guy Devon Achane,
excuse me, it's Don Amici.
And the way he's, when he's healthy. But then you add in the speed element of Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill on reverses and things like that. Mike McDaniel's creativity on how they utilize the speed today, that is huge.
And taking this from the Dallas defensive side, you know, trying to cover Tyreek Hill is like trying to wrap a tornado up in a blanket. It's impossible. The key is how healthy Tyreek Hill is on that ankle
Right.
and how much he can, mind you, you're not playing you're playing in Miami. You're not in Dallas. So field conditions are going to be very important for him to be able to get footing on that ankle. Mind you, like Mike said, if they do establish the run, then covering Tyreek Hill is not going to be your question because you're going to have to pivot. And once they pivot, that's going to free up Tyreek Hill to move into the slot and stuff like that. So,
And go ahead.
sorry. So, I think this is the all-time purpose case to start friggin' blitzing. Let's stop worrying about the forefront and the back. Let the secondary do its job. Let's start sending more off the side.
And you could do against the Dolphin offensive line, which is banged up as well. But the point I was going to bring up, because you brought up Tyreek Hill, and if he's not 100%, it's still having him as a decoy. That is huge if he's playing.
Right. I mean, look,
last
week they got to get hurt.
Last week they figured, hey, we're not going to need him against the Jets. And they didn't. They put up a 30 spot. But now these are the games you're going to need him. You need him the next 3 weeks, and you're going to need him into the playoffs. So if he's used as a decoy, he's used as a decoy. If he's healthy and he can play, he can play. The other guy who's a key offensively, Braxton Berrios.
I was about to say, you have a guy who's kick return, and he's got wheels, and he can get open.
Yeah.
Berrios could be a Michael Gallup-like factor today where he has 1 to 2 receptions, but for 80-plus yards.
And your guy, Cedric Wilson, too.
Yeah, he's not going to be very happy coming back because it's going to be on the opposite side. Mind you, I wanted them to keep Cedric Wilson, so I was kind of jealous that he went to Mike. But I think the key to this game and what's going to be the most interesting part, besides the trench battle, is going to be Jalen Ramsey versus CeeDee Lamb. And I really don't think you're going to see Ramsey off Lamb at all today. They're going to try to do things to get Ramsey off him by moving Lamb around.
Mm-hmm.
And my knowledge of Jalen Ramsey covering in the slot is not as good as what Mike probably knows, so I'll let him take that part of it when I'm done. I think it's more advantageous for Dallas to put CD in the slot and let him be, I hate to say it, be like Tyreek and go wherever he wants, underneath, over the top, through the middle, whatever. Create a game plan to drag Jalen Ramsey away from coverage.
Yeah, and I think that goes into my note about the secondary being healthy, because if he wants to get away from Jalen Ramsey, all of a sudden it's Xavier Howard, and Xavier Howard is not a slouch at cornerback either. So I think
you got 2 great corners. So
right, I think the matchup you would want is probably the slot, where it would probably be Kader Kohu or Nick Needham, but those guys have played pretty well too. So,
and if you look underneath, who will have the job of, and it's not going to be, look, Micah Parsons, I love him. I think he's one of the scariest, best defenders in football. However, he's got that Dallas attitude of coming out and going after the one guy I don't want to piss off in Tyreek Hill. And he talked a little trash talk. I'm sorry. I see what happens when Dallas defense talks trash talk about a receiver and being like Randy Moss, like they did. Learn from experience. You don't have to worry about Leon Lett kicking the ball with a few seconds to go here this year. Let's play this game out. Play at the top of the tier. It's going to be an amazing game. Dallas wins, fine, good. Eagles lose, fine, whatever. Miami lose, Buffalo wins. Mike, what do we look at?
Oh, it's gonna be a
Well,
long.
we already have the Buffalo win. Sorry. Buffalo won.
Yeah.
Miami loses. And then we'll go into the opposite with Dallas.
So the feeling is this, and I felt this way since I saw the schedule. Like, I don't think they're winning these two games before Buffalo. I don't. I think they if they're lucky they go 1-1. And that means week 18, unless the Bills miraculously fall next week at the hands of the Patriots, that would be beneficial. But listen, I think week 18 becomes for the division. They'll probably wind up being the Sunday night game for
It
that
should be
reason.
flexed to that at that point. Yes.
Well, I don't think they've announced the Sunday night game yet for week 18. They wait to see what's available to them. Um, but yeah, I think the eyes are on the prize for that game. For me, if you're the Dolphins, simple. This is just think of Kiss. Keep it simple, stupid. Win, and you're in the playoffs.
And now I'm going to flip it to Dallas. Dallas wins. Then they have the motivation to take on Detroit and then take on Washington and going into it. If Dallas loses, and if they lose, they lose. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm not out there playing. If I'm Jerry Jones, I'm saying I'm in. I'm in. And I'm going to rest my players going into Detroit. If Philadelphia happens to lose tomorrow and Dallas loses, then the next week is just open territory and Dallas can go into that Detroit game. But if Dallas is down and is behind the ball and Philadelphia dismantles the Giants, which I can't see how they don't, but stranger things have happened in the NFL. If Dallas does not end up winning, then I say they're going to pretty much rest their starters, go easier, and go into the playoffs. Most likely going up against the NFC South winner, which right now is up in the air. But when I look at it, yeah, any team could be any team on any given day, but I'm not too concerned about the first round of the playoffs if the Cowboys are, in fact, going against number 4. I think it would be counterproductive right now if Dallas ends up with the 2 spot.
All right.
Okay? It's what it is.
All right. So very quickly, we just got to hit on the last game, which is Ravens and Niners. Just give me one ultimate key.
Okay. For the Ravens-Niners game,
their
it
plans on
comes to the
Christmas Eve.
Niners defensive line stopping Lamar Jackson. That's it.
And flip side, it for the Ravens, I actually think Deebo Samuel's the X factor for the Niners because you know how they like to line them up in different areas. So I think Deebo plays a huge role. Who do you like in the game?
Oh, give me San Francisco, unfortunately.
Yeah, I like San Francisco too. No offense to Baltimore, close game.
No offense to Baltimore, but the way I see it happening, it's just I'm not a big fan of San Francisco.
Just make it high scoring, and then we're all in. But all right. Before we wrap up, Mark, fantasy player of the day.
Fantasy player today is going to be Tyreek Hill. I'm sorry. I hate to say it. I think as much as we talked about decoy and whatnot, the guy knows what's on the line. And when he plays top, 10 receptions and a touchdown. I don't think Miami wins, but I think he has a big day.
Very interesting that you would go that route.
I didn't think you would think that.
I'm going to go Kyler Murray, the Cardinals over the Bears.
That's not a bad thought either.
I don't know.
Trey McBride could have a big day, actually.
I don't know who did the Vegas odds, but having the Bears as 3.5-point favorites is scary to me.
Right now, as we look at it, and we're going to do it fast, I don't go by point spread. Over under right now is more important. Point spreads are too close.
All right, that'll do it for this edition of the Sunday Sideline Report here on the SIN YouTube channel. Check us out every Sunday. Check out the website, www.thesportsinsanitynetwork.com. Blogs, vlogs, planes, trains, and automobiles. You can follow us on socials, Twitter at SInsanityReal. We're also on Facebook. Until next time, for the old ops guy, I'm Mike Rifkin. We'll talk to you next week here on the Sunday Sideline Report. Enjoy football and Merry Christmas.